all of us have the power to make a difference. But I don't think enough people actually believe that. Shouldn't we have also spent equal amounts of time teaching children about themselves and how to then navigate the world that they were going to inevitably come face to face with? So that's why I wanted to do the kids book. And the reason I also did it as a picture book, if we can have as many different avenues as possible talking about these things, then people are going to find that thing that they connect with. Be true to you. You don't need to go online or portray yourself in a certain way because you think you owe that to the people out there. Like even my dad probably had some sort of a mindset, which is like, it's my job to provide, it's the mother's job to do the sort of emotional part.
Right.
Um, so I think what's important is to be able to change people's perspectives on that.
Hi, Sid, and welcome to the About Her Show, a show where we get trailblazing women to share the story of their lives with us. But we also get men on the show, men who champion such women and are open to having honest conversations. Now, you're someone who's done that not only through your work, but in the way you've chosen to speak about mental health, identity, and healing. From your Netflix debut to the two books that you've written, If I'm Honest and Sad Glad, you've used your voice to spark some important conversations, especially among the youth. And we really want to know more about your journey, more about your story, why you chose to do this, and a very, very warm welcome to you, like I said. And let's just dive in.
Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me. Excited to be here and to chat.
Well, likewise. All right. So let's begin with your journey. What led you to shift from the world of business and entertainment to becoming a vocal advocate for mental health?
Yeah, I don't really think that I've necessarily shifted. I think more than anything, I mean, yes, I did shift from the world of business to entertainment back in 2012 is when I left India and came to the US to pursue a career in entertainment. But I wouldn't say I've necessarily shifted into talking about mental health more than actually just sort of now incorporating it into everything that I'm already doing. Um, yeah, it's I think been something that just naturally happened,
Mhm.
and then something where once I realized that I was able to connect to quite a few people surrounding mental health, something that I wanted to continue doing more of.
Okay. Yeah, it is actually something that a lot of people go through it, but sometimes they're not aware of it because we tend to normalize a lot of such situations. And even if I think they become aware, they're not okay to talk about it. There are taboos,
Yeah.
there are norms, so people are not really okay. So, tell me, like you said, you've spoken openly about your struggles with mental health. So, was there a particular moment or a phase that made you decide to speak publicly about it?
Yeah, it was I want to say it would I'm trying to do the math in my head. It would have been around August. It was August 2019. So I stopped drinking in 2018 and in August. And on the 1 year anniversary of that, I put up this, it was a very simple like Instagram story. It wasn't anything great where I basically said that, hey everyone, it's been 1 year since I stopped drinking. This is why I stopped. I'm not an alcoholic or anything, but it was having an adverse effect on my mental well-being. So I decided to stop. Just wanted to share this message, in case it can help anyone else out there. And then I was just inundated with responses from people, and lots of people reached out to me and they were like, oh my gosh, we feel the same way. but we've never sort of felt like we could stop drinking, because it's something that's just so ingrained in people's social lives. They're like, we didn't realize we could do it, but hearing you say that you could stop, especially because of the background that I come from, they were like, thank you so much. That's now inspired us to perhaps make changes in our own life. And it was off the back of that, I was like, well, hang on. I mean, I didn't really do anything here other than just in an open way share my experience. So maybe if I continued to share some of my other experiences, I'd be able to continue helping people in whatever little way. And that's really how everything started.
It is true, actually, just that little spark. Sometimes you're just looking for someone to show you the way. And I think by that, using that Instagram post, you did just that. Because
Yeah, I think, sorry to cut you off. I think for a lot of people as well, they just want to feel like they're not alone. And the minute you hear someone else is talking about a similar experience, or that they've gone through something that you can relate to, it almost gives that person a sense of permission, like, oh well, maybe I can also speak up, or maybe I can also seek help. And I think that's something as human beings we tend to do. We kind of we tend to wait for permission, right? In whatever form that looks like, and then once we feel like we've got it, then we can proceed.
true, true, true. Because, we're held back by so many things, our social
Yeah.
conditioning, all these restrictions. So we forget about being comfortable talking. We just feel that we cannot do it because the world may not be accepting of anything, any of our vulnerabilities. So if someone like you leads the way or just shows them that, yes, this can be done, I think it's like opening up of the floodgates, right?
For sure. And I think the main kind of thing is we have to sort of change the landscape and the narrative around mental health, because most people won't open up simply because they've been brought up to believe that there are certain things which are acceptable, there are certain things that are not acceptable, there are certain things you talk about, there are certain things you just don't talk about, and there are just certain things in life that you get on with.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so what we really need to do is change the culture around mental health and change the way that it's viewed. And once you do that, then I think it gives people the opportunity to feel like, oh, okay, fine. Now we're at a time where it's okay to talk about these things.
Right, right, right. Absolutely. So tell me, in your memoir, if I'm honest, you
Mm.
reflect deeply on your experiences. So, what was the most, or how should I say, what was the hardest part of writing this book and the most healing part?
Uh, I think, well, certainly the hardest part of that book was the chapter on OCD, um, because it was very triggering for sort of like what I was going through at the time. And in fact, I started taking medication for my OCD after I wrote that book, because it did trigger a lot of stuff. So that was probably the hardest chapter to write. But I think the healing part of it was perhaps the knowledge in I was able to help other people. I think knowing that in whatever little way this book could help someone else going through something, that was the part for me that kind of like made the whole thing worth it and why I wanted to do it in the first place.
Okay. Actually, that's true because sometimes, when we feel that, even a small little effort on our part can help someone,
Mm.
just pushes us on to do more because you feel that whatever you're doing is impactful. It's creating some impact, it's making some difference somewhere. So, and also, I feel that when you're writing, it is cathartic in many, many ways because you're also putting down your own thoughts, your own experiences, and probably, getting some clarity in your head about what you've gone through, right?
Yeah, I think that coming to the self-healing part of it, I don't know if I could really pinpoint one thing where I'm like, oh, okay, this really helped with this. But I think, it has been part of a wider journey, and certainly writing the book has led me to a place where I am today, talking to you, where I definitely feel more at peace than I did, 5, 6 years ago, or whenever it was when I started writing the book. Um, so I think it played a part in a much larger picture.
Mhm.
Um, but I think something that you just mentioned, which is really interesting, is that all of us have the power to make a difference. But I don't think enough people actually believe that. I think that we set the bar for ourselves so unrealistically high, where it's like, well, unless we're curing cancer, then we're not really making an impact. Well, I mean, that's not the case at all, is it? I mean, making one person smile in a single day is arguably just as big an impact as anything, because you've helped that person at a specific time. So I actually think all of us have the potential to make a difference. And hopefully by writing that book, and even writing the book, you don't have to write a full-blown book to help people. But I think by writing it, I was hopefully able to show people that, we all have the potential to make a difference, even if we don't think that we can.
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, in a way, you showed the way, by doing that. So, like we spoke earlier, mental health, most people are not comfortable talking about it. But when it comes to mental health in men, especially in culture like ours, it is a taboo subject because men are supposed to be, well, having it all, knowing it all, and that, that whole sense of bravado and all of that. So, how did you or how have you navigated this as a man of Indian descent and in the public eye, both?
Yeah, well, and then we have to add on a third part to that, which is I was also someone that grew up in an all boys boarding school from the age of 10. Now, and this is going back in the 2000s, when it was even more backward than what it is today when it comes to speaking about mental health. And you didn't show your emotions. You sucked it up, you put on a brave face, and it was that sort of, you just get on with things, right? But again, I think it all comes down to changing the narrative around what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. This whole narrative that, and I mean, I know a lot of people, I wrote about it in my book as well, right? Where it's like, even my dad probably had some sort of a mindset, which is like, it's my job to provide, it's the mother's job to do the sort of emotional part.
Right.
Um, so I think what's important is to be able to change people's perspectives on that. And I don't know if you bring up an interesting thing, because I don't know if I actually found that challenging.
Okay. Mhm.
And I think in all credit to everyone that sort of follows my journey and read the book and all of that stuff. I, like we all do, we get trolled online.
Yeah.
But I don't think I can think of many instances where I've ever got someone turn around and be like, oh, you're a man, you shouldn't be speaking about these things. I think people have actually been a lot more receptive to it. Because again, I think it comes down to that whole, everyone's just waiting for permission.
Yes, 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 absolutely. I totally agree with you. Just that one guiding light, and it all just opens up, and which is how it should be also. So tell me, you launched Consider This in 2020.
Yeah.
So, what kind of impact or feedback did you receive from young people through the series?
Well, consider this actually coincidentally coincided with the pandemic.
Yeah.
I think I'd released one or maybe two episodes, and then we went into lockdown and everything.
Mm.
So I think it definitely came out at a very timely point, um, for everyone. But the impact, or at least the feedback from it, was very positive. really positive. And again, it was similar to what I said the feedback was when I shared that I'd stopped drinking. It was like lots of people just saying, wow, I thought I was the only one. Now I know I'm not alone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because again, like going back to those considered this videos, right? I wasn't offering anything groundbreaking in those videos. I wasn't offering some magical cure. I wasn't offering some 10 step, you know, 10 steps to living a happy life. I was literally sitting in front of a camera like we are now and having a honest conversation and sharing my own experiences. And I think that's what people like the most. And I think that's what that was able to resonate with people, was that it was just very simple.
Yes, yes. I think, honesty is also, overrated in the sense people feel that how can we say this? How can we be honest about, certain things? But someone like you, when you do it, you're again showing them the way that it is easy, it is simple. And when you do it, I think it just helps you in so many different ways, coming to terms with what you're going through, coming to terms with how the world perceives you. I think being honest is the simplest thing to do, but yet the hardest, right?
It is the simplest thing to do. Um, but it's the hardest. Again, this seems to be like a running theme for us. It's the hardest because of the culture that has been created and the narrative surrounding being honest.
Correct.
It's somehow seen as weakness, and it's seen as but actually honesty is the thing that comes to us most naturally. This is interesting. This is a little side part, but I think it ties into this. Is that my acting coach in LA? So for the last 2 years, I was also teaching acting in the studio that I went to, which was amazing because I was able to kind of like blend mental health with performance, and I think all of these things do go hand in hand. But my acting coach always used to say one thing. He's like, the job of an actor is to tell the truth, right? In whatever circumstance that character is in, whatever the world is, your job is just to tell the truth. The hardest thing to do is to actually act, because that's unnatural. That means you actually have to do something. Whereas being honest and telling the truth comes naturally to us. And I think there's a parallel to what you're saying, which is telling the truth is actually the simplest thing. And putting up a guard or putting on a persona or whatever it is takes a lot more effort.
Yeah, yeah, it does. Because I guess you're moving away from what you should be doing, and you know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, in your other books, Sad Glad, you've touched upon children and you've touched upon early emotional education, which I think makes a lot of sense because the early on you treat or you even start accepting and acknowledging it, the better it is because you may not have, certain kinds of issues. So, what inspired you to focus on this early emotional education?
Mm. I think it's not necessarily early emotional education as much as it is early emotional awareness.
Okay.
I think you know. I think the thing is we also have to accept kids are only kids. They can only know so much, right? And that's for two reasons. One, they've just only been around for a finite amount of time. And two, there's obviously the physiological component where the brain and the body and everything is still developing. So you don't want to try and teach kids too much. Therefore, that the aim of my kids book was not about trying to educate these children and turn them into little gurus, but it was at least to start introducing these topics and having it on their awareness. So when inevitably later in life they do deal with the real things that we all human beings deal with, even those who don't suffer from mental health issues, like dealing with feelings and emotions and all that sort of stuff, it's not a foreign concept. It's kind of already been sprinkled into their subconscious throughout the years.
Mm.
Um, and the reason why I wanted to do that is because I think back to like my own experience, especially with OCD, and I'm like, I wonder how much time and pain and suffering I could have saved if I knew about this earlier on, like, I mean, I knew I had OCD, but I didn't really know anything about it until I was like clinically diagnosed when I was almost 30 years old.
Mhm.
And then I think to myself, I'm like, it was great that they taught me geography and history and all that stuff at school. But shouldn't we have also spent equal amounts of time teaching children about themselves and how to then navigate the world that they were going to inevitably come face to face with? So that's why I wanted to do the kids book. And the reason I also did it as a picture book, I
Yeah.
look at all the books behind you on your shelf, is because I didn't want it to seem like it
Also
was
here.
education. No, there it is. Yeah, there it is. Because I didn't want it to seem like it was education. Because I remember how I was when I was 5, 6 years old. I didn't want to learn. I wanted to be out playing and, you know, exploring and doing all the things that children do. I think if you start telling kids that you need to learn about this, that's where you're going to get met with resistance. Now, obviously, there are some kids that love school and love learning, but I think the majority of them don't want to feel like they're being forced to do something. So that's why I did it in the format that I did.
I think you're so right. It is not education, it is the awareness. Just to know that this is, how it can be. Because ultimately, yes, you do need knowledge of all those subjects that you study, geography, physics, chemistry, whatever. But the ability to deal with the real world is what is the most important thing, and which is something I don't think a lot of schools back in the day used to do. Of course there are changes now, but I still feel that we have a long way to go when it comes to actually teaching children how to be in this world, how to survive, how to exist.
Well, if you think of it like this, okay, so you're an 18-year-old that is now going off to college,
Yeah.
okay, and you're going to go, and so one kid is going to go to medical school and he's going to become a doctor. Another kid is going to go and he is going to become a writer.
Mm.
Okay. Someone else is going to go and they're going to become an archaeologist.
Right.
Fine. That's great. It's very unlikely, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's unlikely that the kid that becomes a doctor is ever going to have any experience in archaeology
Yeah.
throughout their life. It's
Mhm.
unlikely that the archaeologist is going to be a full-time writer, right? It's unlikely that the writer is then going to be an archaeologist.
Mm.
But what all three of these people will all experience at some point or another is changing emotions and feelings and all the intrinsic ingredients of the human experience. And I think if we're going to teach people how to be specialists in subjects, we still also need to teach people how to also be the best human beings.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is so true. I mean, everybody will go through that emotional journey, and teaching them how to deal with that, I think, is very, very critical. So, of course, now there are conversations around mental health. People are talking about it, and they're also trying to make an impact through different ways, whatever comes to people's minds. But do you think addressing mental health through storytelling, whether it is books or films, has a stronger impact and a more long-lasting impact than traditional awareness campaigns?
I think there's room for everything, right? I think the reason why we shouldn't perhaps promote one over another or discount one um, against another is simply because people have different ways of learning and different ways of absorbing information. How you absorb something might be very different to how I absorb something, right? Might be very different to how my wife absorbs something. So if we can have as many different avenues as possible talking about these things, then people are going to find that thing that they connect with. It's interesting because I reread this book, The Untethered Soul,
Mm-hmm.
last week, which is one of the premier mental health sort of well-being books by Michael Singer.
Mm-hmm.
I read that book first, I say probably in 2018, 2019, and it didn't resonate with me one bit. Whereas upon reading it now, it's like gold for me. It's golden.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, if you take any of these books, any of these very famous books, The Untethered Soul, The Power of Now, whatever, ultimately they all tell you the same message,
Right.
but each one is doing it in a very slightly different way, which then means that some people are going to gravitate more towards the message in the power of now. Some people are going to gravitate more towards the message in the untethered soul. I read another one earlier this year, which was the courage to be disliked. Some people are going to gravitate more to the way that that book was written.
Right. Right.
But ultimately, we're all kind of landing at the same conclusion.
Correct. Correct. So yeah, I think it's more like, different strokes for different folks. You've got to
Yeah,
try different things. You don't know what's going to work with whom.
and that is, I think, fundamental to everything we do
Yeah.
in the world, because there just is not a one size fits all approach to anything. And I think actually that's kind of like one of the issues that we have, which is we try and fit people all into the same size.
Yes.
And ultimately, there are going to be some that fit and some that don't. And we have to be able to be flexible with people, and people have to allow themselves to be flexible and figure out for themselves what works.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell me, you're part of the acting world now, where
Yeah.
rejection, criticism are quite frequent, right? So then, in this kind of a scenario, how do you manage your mental health?
I mean, it's hard. I think well, the first thing, it comes down to acceptance. And I think this is again one of the big messages in these all of these books, Power of Now and Tethered Soul, which is a lot of human discomfort comes from the rejection of what is actually happening, right? The rejection of reality. Once you accept it, acceptance doesn't mean that you like turn a blind eye to it or you have to be happy with it. You just have to accept it happens. So knowing full well that I've chosen a career that consists of 99% rejection and 1% acceptance,
Yeah.
accepting that reality means that, okay, does it hurt any less? Obviously not, but at least I'm not fighting against it.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, and it's funny, I did an audition 2 hours ago today for something.
Hmm.
I may get the role, in which case I'll be shooting next week.
Yeah.
But equally, I may never ever hear from them ever again. And I think knowing that, knowing that I went into it and was myself, I got sent a script like many other people.
Yeah.
I gave them my interpretation of what I thought that character was. So at least I can go to sleep knowing that I did whatever I could do.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And I think that leads on to another point, which is taking responsibility for the things we can control and really making peace with the things that are outside of our control.
Wonderful, wonderful. That is so, so true. I think we constantly struggle between these two,
Of
isn't it?
course, because we think that we can control everything and
Yes,
we can't.
we can't. Yes.
And nor do we have to. And by the way, this is like a really difficult message that I every day have to remind myself that, like, okay, this isn't within your control. You can only do X amount.
Yes. Yes.
Beyond that, it's not your concern anymore.
It isn't. It isn't. And this is something I think we need to constantly repeat because it just keeps coming back, because you want to do this, you want to do that, and then you can't come to terms with the fact that it didn't happen the way you wanted to. But like you said, things which are not in our control, we have to accept that we cannot do anything about it. Yeah. So tell me, young people today, as compared to earlier years, they also have this added pressure of being on social media,
Yeah.
completely and totally overwhelms them. So, from your own experience, and considering the fact that they are going through all this, and all the expectations that come along with being on social media, what advice would you like to give them?
Yeah, it's a hard one. That it's a real hard one because I don't know how you manage it. I really don't.
Hmm.
Um, and of course, I was talking about this to someone the other day, and I'm like, who is it harder for? Is it harder for the 15-year-old today,
Mhm.
or is it harder for the 40-year-old today? And let me tell you why.
Mm.
The 15-year-old has never known a world without social media.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
40-year-old, on the other hand, has remembered a time without social media.
true.
So I think that but I think, I think that the overall kind of message with that is to always remember that, how do I say this? You don't owe anything to anyone other than yourself. Now, I got to be careful when I say this, because there's a lot of people that'll turn around and say, well, that's a stupid, horrible way to live. That means you're selfish and you're self centered. I'm not saying that one bit. What I'm saying is be true to you. You don't need to go online or portray yourself in a certain way because you think you owe that to the people out there.
Right, right. So, yes, it's, I think, not so much about being self-centered, but about also kind of, in a way, loving yourself and doing things which seem authentic to you, right to you, and not doing them because they are right by somebody else's standards or, expectations or whatever you may want to call it. So, I think understanding
Mm-hmm.
that bit is very, very critical.
For sure. And then what that comes down to is that always looking at an action and then going deeper and looking at what is the motivation for the action.
Right.
Now, I talk about that in my book because I have this whole chapter. This is in If I'm Honest, there's a whole chapter about dealing with guilt because, I came from this family that had wealth and was in the public eye, and I guess I felt guilty for it. So there was a period in time where I would like give food to the homeless, which I still do. I mean, I think it's a great act.
It is.
It's good if you can help someone.
Yes.
But if I'm being honest, for the longest time, I was giving that to the homeless out of feeling guilty for my own privilege.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
Today, however, I'm doing it because I am at peace with who I am and where I've come from. I can't change that. And
Right.
I'm doing it as an act of service as opposed to an act of fear, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, 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 absolutely, absolutely. So you have, like you mentioned earlier, you have accepted the uncontrollable in this sense, which is where you come from. So if you come or you came from a privileged background, it's okay. You can't help that. So, you're not trying to condone that or you're not trying to make up for it. That is a part of your life. Whatever else you now do, it's like, starting on a clean slate in that sense. You're not doing it because of that background. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think the other realization with that is that look, there are certain things I can't control.
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
And so there's no point me even trying to fight it.
Yeah, I agree.
Instead, why not put that effort and energy into the things that I can control, like spreading mental health awareness, instead of fighting things and trying to defend myself against people that might have things to say because of who my family is or anything like that.
Absolutely.
I can't change that. Like it's really that simple. Like it takes a lot, but it's taken a lot for me to kind of get to this place.
Yeah, I can totally get it. It's not easy. Yeah. So we're talking about mental health, and of course, like we said, conversations happening all over, all around the world. But how do you see the global conversations around mental health evolving? Are we moving in the right direction?
For sure. Yeah, I think so. I think it's definitely becoming a lot more acceptable um, to talk about these things. And there's definitely a much bigger concerted effort amongst people that have platforms to talk about mental health and to promote mental health and to shine a light on it.
Yeah.
Um, I think I don't know if I'm right in saying this. Maybe I'm wrong because I'm kind of out of touch, but I think it was Ranbir Kapoor did some podcast or something a few months ago
Yeah.
where he spoke about his own kind
Yes.
of experiences, and I think something like his relationship with his dad. Is this, am I right?
Yes,
I
absolutely.
saw clips of this. I saw clips of this. Now, the fact that he, and this is a, forget me, okay? I'm nothing compared to what he is in the public eye. He's a megastar. And the fact that someone like that,
Yeah.
who not only is in his own right a huge star, but also comes from a lineage of, of stars, is comfortable enough today to be that open and vulnerable. That's not only testament to him, but that's definitely testament to the fact that we are, especially in India, moving in the right direction, and that people are open to hearing those kinds of things from their idols, which
Yeah.
obviously he is.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, that really went viral because, like you said, for someone like him to come out and talk about his issues, that was something which a lot of people, a lot of people from the young generation also resonated with. Because, like I mentioned earlier, sometimes these kind of relationships we tend to normalize that this is how it is going to be. But no, if you're not comfortable, if you are having issues because of a certain kind of relationship, well, accept it. And if someone like him is accepting of it, is talking about it, then he's normalizing it for other people and, making a lot of difference. So, yeah, the episode was very, very well received. So, Sid, of course, we've been talking about how you've coped up with mental health, coming to, terms with it and accepting it, of all of that. But I'm sure, like, there were other ways in which you got helped in this, or other ways in which you dealt with it, which is like therapy or professional interventions. So, my question to you is, what role have these therapy or professional interventions played in your healing journey?
Huge. My therapist has been an integral part of my journey, um, and really guided me through uh, sort of seeing what I was going through, and helping me then navigate what it was, and coming up with what a plan that would work for me to kind of deal with the things that I had.
Mhm.
And more than anything, I think what professionals can do is they can help you better understand what it is you're going through and where perhaps it might come from.
Right, right, right. I think that is very essential because at the end of the day, they are the experts, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And again, comes down to changing the narrative around seeking professional help. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no weakness in it. Um, we don't flinch to go to the dentist if our tooth hurts. So why wouldn't you go and see a mental health professional if you've got something mental going on?
Absolutely. I mean, this is like what I always say, when you have a headache, for instance, you instantly either take a pill or you consult a doctor if it's not going. So if you can do it
Yeah.
for that, why can't you do it for this? Something which is
Mhm.
going to have repercussions for the long run. Why not just accept it and take whatever help you need for it? Right?
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully it's getting better. I mean, we can talk about India for a second. I mean, I don't know how accurate this is,
Hmm.
but I did a podcast, maybe it was probably about a year ago now, but they gave me some statistic that there's something like 6,000 licensed therapists in the entire country.
Mm-hmm.
And this is for what are we currently? 1.4, 1.5 billion people or something?
Yeah, yeah.
So, I think that hopefully not only do people see that it's okay to speak to these professionals, I hope a lot of people also see that it's a very viable and necessary career path for people to take.
Yes, I totally agree. And so, actually, I'm from the academia, so I can tell you that a lot of young people are opting to go into this space because they feel
That's amazing.
potential is there. Plus, they know that they can make a difference. So, I think that is happening in a big way. But of course, it will take some time. The biggest thing is
Yeah, no,
there's,
of course.
yeah, yeah. So, Sid, looking ahead, what's next for you? More acting, more writing, more initiatives in the mental health space, or a bit of everything?
I think everything. I think that all of these things can kind of go hand in hand. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah.
Um, So there are a few acting gigs coming up, hopefully. It's one of those industries where it's unless that camera starts rolling, you don't really know when it's going to happen. So there's a couple of things that were announced that we're just waiting to hear back on the start date.
Mhm.
I definitely have plans, and there are offers to do more books. So I think I will do that as well. And really, I'm going to keep doing whatever I can to make a difference. And as long as what I'm doing helps even one person, then, I'm happy to give it a shot.
I'm sure it'll help many, many people because, like I said earlier, someone well known stepping up and, feeling that they can do something, it just paves the way for everyone else. So I think you will definitely be making a lot of impact, and all the best to you.
Thanks very much.
So, Sid, now, though we've come to the end of the conversation, we just have one little thing, which is a rapid fire round. And
Mhm.
that is going to be 5 quick questions and 5 quick answers. Are you ready for
Very
that?
good. Ready to go.
All right. So, the first one emotion you've made peace with.
Um, oh gosh. Uncertainty.
Okay. All right. Okay. The next one, sad, glad in 3 words.
Cycle that in 3 words. Dealing with feelings.
All right. Okay.
Finally, here's a quick one for your listeners. That was the initial working title of the book.
Oh,
Um, but
okay.
there was another dealing with feeling already out. So
Yeah. Okay. 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 So,
yeah.
all right. But I quite like this sound of sad glad, because
Actually, no, sorry. Sad Glad was the working title, and I wanted to call it Dealing with Feeling.
oh, okay.
But then that was already out there, and then we were like, actually, no, Sad Glad's pretty good.
It is because it's bringing both the emotions together.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right, the next one mental health myth you want to bust.
That seeking help is weakness.
Right, right. All right, the next one, a mantra you live by.
Oh, it's 3 simple words. I actually have it tattooed on my arm. I don't know. 3 very simple words. Because as human beings, we tend to feel like we have to know everything. And
Right.
we don't. We don't have to always have the answers, and we don't have to know how things happen.
Mm.
And we can live in that place of just acceptance.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And the last one thing you are grateful for today.
Uh, my wife.
Oh, okay, how sweet. All right.
Yeah, yeah, it's had a big impact on me.
Okay, that's good to know. So, Sid, thank you so much for sharing
Thank you.
all this with us, your journey, being so open, thoughtful, and real, because believe me, that counts. Authenticity is what actually makes a lot of difference. And that's the reason why we have this platform, to have conversations which are honest, which pave the way, and which, as you mentioned, give permission to other people to talk about these things which are considered taboo, or which are restricted by the way we've been conditioned. And for you to come out, talk about all this as a man in public eye, well, you have challenged certain outdated norms and made space for some deeper and inclusive conversations and dialogue. So thank you so much for being on the show.
For sure. Thank you very much as well.
Thank you for tuning in to the About Her show. If you enjoyed this episode, there's plenty more from where that came from. Our previous guests have shared some amazing stories, so be sure to catch up on past episodes. To keep up with our inspiring conversations and to never miss an update, hit subscribe, rate, review, and share the love.
Follow us on social media for some great content, and don't forget to check out our website www.aboutherbysangeeta.com for stories that resonate, inspire and empower. Know a remarkable woman or an inspiring man blazing a trail? We'd love to hear from you. Drop us a note at web.abouther@gmail.com and let's bring their story to life on the About Her Show.